Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu's latest film is a frontier adventure that you will not soon forget. I saw this on Christmas Day, and since then, I've constantly thought about the film. Not just the film in its entirety, but just sequences from the film that just blew me away. Every once in a while, there comes a film that basically just shows you things, takes you places that you never thought or imagined were possible. Early this year, George Miller returned and gave us Mad Max Fury Road, which is like one of the quintessential action adventure films of the decade, maybe even of the century, and probably it was just an amazing looking film and a great adventure. Now comes along Inarritu's The Revenant, and for many different reasons, it is in the same league as Mad Max Fury Road, as it is an amazing cinematic adventure that is just as brutal, just as engaging, and just as unforgettable. Based in part actually on the novel by Michael Punk, I hope I said that correctly, or Punke. Interesting to say is it's based in part, so you got to wonder just how much of the novel was actually used for the film. I have not read the novel myself, but the screenplay by Inarritu and Mark L. Smith tells a pretty effective tale about a fur trapper and scout who is left behind by his party after a bear attack and left for dead. However, it turns out he did not die, and he comes back seeking revenge against those who left him behind. And that's basically the gist of the story. Now, there are three things in this film that people are going to talk about a lot. And definitely one of the biggest things that comes to mind is the bear. Now, if you've seen the trailer, you know about you see maybe a few seconds of this bear attack. But the bear attack in this film is incredibly well made, and you'll know just how much of it is CGI, how much of it is practical effects, and overall it's just an incredibly tense and well-made sequence that, again, you just wonder how did they pull this off? And it's just, it looks real. If you think back to the documentary by Werner Herzog, Grizzly Man, about a man who studies bears out in nature, and he was actually attacked and killed and eaten by a bear. And you can only imagine this is just a tenth of what it was like to have to suffer through that. And Leo totally sells the sequence, and the bear is incredibly looking, and that's just one powerful moment. Another thing that everyone's going to talk about is Emmanuel Lubezki's cinematography. This is an incredibly looking film, and it's just the cinematography and the framing and the images that they captured in this film are just mind-boggling on how they had managed to accomplish that. It's like you could literally walk through the screen and you're there in the middle of nowhere, in the harsh wilderness in the middle of winter. I know there's a lot of great hype going on about The Hateful Eight and the fact that it was shot in 70mm, and granted there were some incredible vistas and photography that was done in there by Robert Richardson, but what Lubezki did in this film is incredible. The film was shot entirely with natural light, and just what lighting they did use, it just puts you in the moment, puts you in the scene, and it's really effective. And it's just mind-boggling on the things that they pulled off. I mean, again, if you watch the trailer, there's a scene where you see Leo on horseback being chased by other Indians, and the camera is just riding along Leo, who's clearly riding a horse, riding along with Leo, perfectly steady, not jumping to being like it was on a dolly track or something, but it's just totally with him, and then moves around him, and then comes back again. It's one fluid motion and just showing you what's going on around him without losing focus on Leo, and just keeping him in the center of the frame and not losing an inch. And there's just other things and other camera tricks that is like as Inarritu did with Birdman and his fantastic quote-unquote single take, And he pulls off so many amazing things here with Lubezki, who also did Birdman and other Malick films. And I'm sure I've been hearing a lot about people saying how this looks like a Malick film, and Lubezki did do a number of Malick's films. And The Revenant is just, as I said, it was an amazing film to look at. Another thing, the third thing that I think that a lot of people are going to talk about is the brutality. This is a very brutal film. It doesn't pull any punches. It really shows you how harsh the frontier was and what it was like back then, and the level of violence that men and other people inflict on each other, and the dark levels that people sink to because they think they're better than someone else in regards to say us versus Native Americans, how Native Americans were on the bottom of the totem pole per se, and how they were just mistreated, and it doesn't flinch from that. And it is a brutal film. There is violence, and it's definitely the kind of violence that will make you flinch. And of course, the big thing that everyone will be talking about are the performances. I think it's about time. It looks like Leo will finally get his Oscar, and he is really good. He really throws himself into the part, and he's a force of nature in this. But not to be outdone is Tom Hardy, who's also just as good as a fellow trapper and trader, and the levels that he'll go to survive just to save his own skin. And there are other actors in here that you'll recognize. Donald Gleason, who recently was in The Force Awakens and the Harry Potter films. Again, Tom Hardy. Will Porter has a small part. You probably remember him from We're the Millers. And altogether, their performances are very strong. You totally buy into that these men were out there. They are living this. This is what it's like. And it's just a brutal existence that probably not many people want to willingly get involved in. And Inarritu really captures all of this. And it's like he did with Birdman. I think Inarritu has outdone himself with this one, and it's just a cinematic experience to behold. It's definitely one you want to see on the big screen. You don't want to wait for this to come home to home video. Just go out and see this and take it all in. It's a beautiful looking film. I would give The Revenant a 9 out of 10. You're probably wondering, why would I only give it a 9 out of 10 considering I'm here gushing in here and comparing it to Mad Max Fury Road, which I gave a 10 out of 10. Probably the lone thing that's holding me back from taking it all the way is just the story is pretty basic. I mean, it's a basic revenge story about one man seeking revenge against someone who did him wrong. And it's not giving anything away that there is a resolution, because it would probably really annoy the hell out of anyone who had to sit through 2.5 hours of film and not have a resolution. And it leads to that. And it is a brutal resolution, but it's basically the story itself. It's pretty basic, but just the execution and how it was filmed, how it was made, is just elevates it to better than the material itself is. So it doesn't like hit the depths of, say, like Birdman and the psychology that Michael Keaton's character was going through, but it's still a engaging and fascinating adventure in the lines of, say, Last of the Mohicans, and how one man has to survive and his battle to survive nature and his fellow man. So The Revenant, 9 out of 10, definitely one to seek out when it finally opens at theaters near you. And definitely do see it in the theater and don't wait for home video. So if you like this video, please hit that like button below. Have you seen The Revenant? Have you heard of The Revenant? Or even more, have you read the book The Revenant? I myself have not read it. I'm curious to find out what the differences are. So please comment below. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do. And if you have, thank you very much. So by subscribing to my channel, you can stay on top of my reviews as they come in. And not just the new films, but also my Throwback Thursday reviews. And with the end of the year approaching, my top 10 should be coming around shortly. So, until next time, we'll see you at the movies.